We are going to continue our discussion of the course Fiction in English in our class today. In the earlier class, we talked about the origin and development of the English novel. We traced it through the different periods in the history of literature. We also discussed one prescribed novel in detail, that is Wuthering Heights. We covered the plot, the characters, the themes, and the narrative technique in the prescribed novel Wuthering Heights. In the class today, we are going to take up Albert Camus' novel, The Outsider. The Outsider has another title to it, The Stranger. This novel was originally written in French and it is titled L'étranger. L'étranger in French means the stranger. The American publication of the book in English is titled The Stranger. The British publication of L'étranger in English is titled The Outsider. The Outsider and The Stranger are one and the same. They are a translation of Albert Camus' original French novel L'étranger. So do not get confused between the two titles. In your SLM, the title that we are using is The Outsider. So throughout the lesson, I will be referring to the novel by the title The Outsider. Before we jump into the plot of The Outsider, we need to know some background to The Outsider. In your SLM, Unit 7 contains information about The Outsider. It gives you the background, the plot, and the character study. Now, I'll briefly tell you about the background, something that you should know to understand the novel. This novel is set in Algiers at a time when Algiers was colonized or conquered by the French. The period is the World War II. In the year 1946, the French had occupied Algiers, and this novel, The Outsider, is also published in 1946, the year in which it was occupied by France. So you will find in the background to the novel a deep sense of imperialism. So when we look at the different characters in the novel, when we look at the plot in the novel, we have to remember the background that this is a country that is under foreign occupation now. Other important things we will discuss as we move ahead with the discussion on the novel. Before I started the class, I informed you all to keep your SLM open and go to page number 112. On page 112, we have a discussion on the plot, and as I told you, in a while from now, I'll be reading from your SLM. I'll be reading the passages written. So if you have the SLM, you can follow me as I read from the SLM. After we have a look at the plot, we will also talk about the characters, the themes, and the narrative technique. But remember, these are not separate watertight compartments. When we talk about the plot, we will also be talking about the characters. We'll be also mentioning what the narrative technique is. And invariably, the themes used in the novel will also be discussed. So there are no watertight compartments, but for a better understanding of the novel and especially to write good answers in the examination, dividing a study of the novel into these 4 broad headings would be more useful. Now, coming back to the plot of The Outsider, we can look at The Outsider from the broad timeline in which the novel is set. The novel is basically divided into 2 parts. When I read from your SLM, you will know what these 2 parts are. For now, you should know this much, that this novel, The Outsider, opens with information about the death of Madame Meursault at the old age home. Who is Madame Meursault? She is the mother of Meursault. And who is Meursault? Meursault is the central character in The Outsider. He is the narrator. He is also the protagonist. So the novel opens with the news of the death of the protagonist's mother. The protagonist is a young adult, but his mother does not stay with him. She is an old woman, unable to take care of his mother by himself because he stays alone and because he has long job hours. Mersault has put his mother in the old age home, but as the novel proceeds, we understand that neither does he regularly go to visit his mother, nor does he have regular correspondence with his mother. So, strangely, the novel opens with something very negative, something morbid. We hear about the death of the mother, and it opens something like this. Mother died yesterday. Mother died today. I'm sorry. Mother died today. That is the telegram he receives from the old age home informing him about his mother's death. Okay. As we learn about the death of his mother, things move fast because now Mersault has to go to the old age home, perform his mother's funeral. He has some things to sort out here. He has to take leave at the place where he's working. Then he lives in an apartment building. We know about a few of his friends and acquaintances. We also know about, in the course of this same time, about one of Mersault's friend. He's named Raymond. Raymond has a mistress. We learned that he has learned that his girlfriend has been cheating on him, and he has tried to round her up. Now this girl goes and reports the issue to her brother. So we have the presence of Raymond, we have the presence of his mistress, we have the presence of the girl's brother and the brother's friend. We also see a character, Salomono, who loses his dog. The reaction of Salomono losing his dog and the reaction of Mersault losing his mother are completely contradictory. Here is one man, Salomono, neighbor to Mersault, who has a pet dog. He has nobody else in the family. He never takes good care of his dog as long as the dog was with him. He was very cruel, very harsh. He did not even feed his dog properly. But one day when the dog goes missing, we find Salomono feeling completely terrified. It is like his life has come to a standstill. He does not know what he will do without his dog. So if a man who never took good care of his dog can feel so helpless and lost and isolated when his dog goes missing, what could be the plight of a man who has lost his mother? His mother has passed away. Mother passed away. Those are the words that the novel opens with. So how would be the reaction of the narrator? How would be the reaction of Mersault, who loses his mother? We would think he's shocked. We would think he's traumatic. But no such thing happens. Mersault appears to have absolutely no feelings for his mother. It does not mean that he does not like his mother. It is just that he is a person by nature so very detached that he just cannot have any feelings. Another reason why he cannot have any feelings for his mother's death is that they hardly spend time together, especially in the last few years. So there has been no interaction, no correspondence, no news sharing. So that sense of belonging was cut off some time ago. And this is one of the results of the World War I and the World War II. We also learn about a friend, Masson, who has a beach house. He is a friend of Raymond, and Raymond is a friend of Mersault. There is one more character who is not listed on this slide, Celeste. Celeste is a restaurant owner. He is also one of the friends of Mersault. One other character in the novel that we come across is Marie. Marie is Mersault's co-worker. They work at the same place. They have a brief relationship, but again, we do not find any emotional attachment there. It is just a physical relationship. And for Indians, for most of the readers of this novel, it was shocking that soon after the death of his mother, Mersault could go and spend time with his girlfriend Marie. We also have an issue where Raymond, Mersault and Marie go to the beach house, but unfortunately there is an altercation. The altercation is averted, but then it so happens that Mersault goes back to the beach where the initial altercation took place between Raymond and his mistress's brother and his friends. And when Mersault goes there the second time, he has Raymond's gun in his hand. And for absolutely no reason, just because the sun was shining in his eye, He shoots the girl's brother, and not once, but he shoots him again and again. He gets caught and is put on trial, and eventually the narrator, the protagonist, is condemned to death. This is the main plot of The Outsider. Before I talk about the characters, I would like to read to you from the SLM. The section is 7.2.2. The section heading is the plot. I'm reading from the SLM now. It is page 112. Please follow me as I move from page 112 to the other pages. Once the reading ends, I will come back to the character study in The Outsider. I have some more slides on the plot that I will share with you towards the end. Those are not original. I have borrowed these from some other source. Okay, I'm reading from the plot. I may be skipping some lines which are not very important. The plot of The Outsider is divided into two parts. Part 1 is further divided into 6 chapters, and it covers a period of less than a month, while the second part covers a period of about 1 year and is further divided into 5 chapters. The plot of The Outsider revolves around the central character, as I told you, Monsieur Mirsault. In French, the word Monsieur is the equivalent of Mr. He is a young man with a very modest income from a private job. When the story opens, as I told you, we are informed that his mother died. The narrator, instead of worrying about his mother, the cause of her death, that he was not there beside her at the time of death, which is the usual human emotion, we find his reaction something very different. The narrator is in doubt whether she died that day or the day before, because the quoted lines are there a little below. Mother died today. That is today of the telegram, and he does not know whether today means today or the day before. The narrator is in doubt whether she died that day or the day before. He is informed about the death of his mother through a letter from the warden of the Home for Aged People. The opening lines of The Outsider are quoted below, and I quote, "Mother died today, or maybe yesterday, I can't be sure." The telegram from the home says, now these are the exact words of the telegram: "Your mother passed away. Funeral tomorrow. Deep sympathy," which leaves the matter doubtful. It could have been yesterday. So now Mirsault is left thinking, these people sent him a telegram informing him that his mother passed away, but they did not say when. They are only informing him about the funeral that will take place the next day. Look at the choice of words. The first 3 words, "Mother died today." These are the words of the narrator. These are the words of Mirsault. He is using the word died. Look at the words used in the telegram by the people of the Home for the Aged. "Your mother passed away." These people are more careful. They have used an euphemism for died. They are not using the harsh word died. But for the narrator, it is reality. If she is dead, she is dead. It is not going to make any difference to him if he uses the words passed away. Okay, I'm continuing. The very casual and matter-of-fact opening enables the reader a glimpse into the character of Mirsault. It also sets the tone of the novella. It is a short novel, hence the word novella is being used. The first-person narrative style bonds the reader with the narrator because he's talking to us directly. So we develop a bond with the narrator, the protagonist, and build sympathy for the central character that has just lost his mother. The opening paragraph also unravels the plot. Mirsault had sent his ailing old mother to the old age home because he could not afford to maintain her. He had felt that she would be more comfortable and taken good care of in the old age home. Mirsault's intention is seemingly to provide a decent and comfortable life to his mother, which he could not. So he opts for the old age home in her interest. However, in the later part of the story, this is held against him during the trial. He is on trial because of the murder, but the murder trial revolves more around the death of his mother, about him not taking care of his mother, and it holds him responsible as a person who's uncaring. Next paragraph. Mersault leaves to attend his mother's funeral. He finds everyone being sympathetic to him. At the home for aged people, Mersault declines to look at his mother's face for no particular reason. Generally, people try to have a last look at the departed person. The family members in any family where there is a funeral look at the face of the person one last time. When he goes to the home for the aged people, he refuses to look at the face. But not because he does not like his mother. There is no reason. He just doesn't want to look at it. He sits in vigil, sipping coffee and smoking a cigarette when it is offered to him. He even dozes off now and then during the vigil. In the Christian tradition, when a person passes away, until the funeral takes place, people hold vigil. That is, there is always somebody or the other, especially from the immediate family, who will stay awake next to the dead body. He is also sitting there, but though this is normal, I mean, we cannot hold him responsible for doing anything bad as sipping coffee or smoking. But for other people, this is wrong. He's the son, his mother passed away. He's sitting next to the body, having coffee, smoking a cigarette. He also falls asleep for a short while, not because of disrespect, but because he's tired, he has come from job, he had a journey. I'm continuing to read. He is not overcome by emotion at any point in the novella for his mother's passing away. The gatekeeper of the home, the warden, and Thomas Perry, his mother's supposed fiancé, and a close companion at the home are characters whom we encounter again at the trail. These are the characters that I did not mention in the earlier slide, but they are mentioned in a later slide. Next paragraph. Returning from his mother's funeral, Mersault comes in contact with Marie, a former employee at his office. All these characters are mentioned on the slide that is there on your screen now. Returning from his mother's funeral, Mersault comes in contact with Marie, a former employee at his office. The flirtatious meeting ends with their going to a comedy film the next day. Again, this is something that may shock people. A son returns from his mother's funeral, flirts with a colleague, and then goes to watch a movie. And not just any movie, but a comedy movie. When Marie hears that his mother died a day before, she is startled, but still goes ahead with the movie plan. Soon the two develop a romantic relationship. We also learn about Mersault's neighbor, Raymond Sinte, his Arab girlfriend, her brother, and his Arab friends. Algiers is basically populated by Arab population. And another neighbor, Salamono, and his dog. We are also introduced in the course of the dark and poignant tragic story to Celeste, who is Mersault's friend, and to Masson, who is Raymond's friend. Next paragraph. One day, Raymond approaches Mersault and requests him to draft a letter to his Arab girlfriend, whom he suspects of cheating him. The letter is meant to trap her into meeting him one last time. And see, this novel is narrated through Mersault. We know only as much as Mersault knows. That is why this is a technique that Albert Camus utilizes. How will we know the background to the relationship between Raymond and his girlfriend? It is because the letter is being written by Mersault that we get to know the background. I'm continuing to read, and I'm now on page 114. As expected, the girl arrives and a fight starts between them. Hearing sounds of assault, a neighbor calls in the police. Later, on Raymond's request, Mersault testifies in favor of Raymond. The girlfriend and her brother hold a grudge against Raymond and plan to attack him for revenge. In the meantime, we learn about another neighbor, Salamono, and his dog. He ill-treats his dog, swears at it, and kicks and drags it. Most neighbors feel offended by Salamono's cruelty to his dog. Mersault also tries to speak for the dog, but Salamono continues with harsh treatment to the dog. One day the dog is lost, and Solomono becomes very distressed. He cannot imagine life without his dog. He had taken it in, that is, he had adopted it, he had brought it as a pet soon after his wife's death, and the dog held deep loneliness and was his companion. Solomono's yearning for his dog, despite him being cruel to it, is in sharp contrast to Meursault, who has no feelings for his mother on her death. Next paragraph. The novella presents scenes at the beach where Meursault enjoys being in water with Marie. Once Raymond takes Marie and Meursault to Masson's place. Masson, as I already told you, is a friend of Raymond. He lived with his wife near the beach. When Raymond, Marie, and Meursault go to Masson's beach house, the Arabs started following Raymond for revenge. Raymond, in anticipation of the attack, had a revolver ready with him. Meursault, on an impulse, takes away the revolver from Raymond and keeps it with himself. This is such a very tragic situation. See how caring Meursault is. He knows his friend is carrying a weapon, and he knows his friend is angry. He knows his friend may shoot one of the brothers, and he may be jailed or he may be arrested. To protect his friend, because he did not want any violence, he takes the revolver and keeps it with him. And unfortunately, that becomes his own tragedy. I'm continuing to read. At the beach, they're attacked by the Arabs, and Raymond receives a cut on his hand and mouth. Mason, because the gun is with Meursault, Raymond could not use it. Masson and Meursault help him back to his home. Meursault returns to the beach, and when he comes again, he returns to the beach for no good reason. He just wanted to go, and he went. There is a deep sense of meaninglessness throughout the novel. Meursault returns to the beach, and when he comes across the Arab who had inflicted wounds on Raymond, he finds the sun bearing down heavily upon him, and once again, on an impulse, he takes out the revolver and shoots the Arab dead. We don't know why he shot the Arab. He was not so close to Raymond that he would try to take revenge on his friend getting hurt. So it is very surprising that one, he carried the weapon with him. He had to encounter the brother there. He had the weapon with him. Everything seems to be so coincidental, so very tragic. Next paragraph. The story shifts to the scene where Meursault is arrested. He has already confessed to his crime. However, the legal process is long drawn out. Part 2, remember, runs for about a year. Though his case was a simple one as a one-time case with no prior history of criminal wrongdoing, and he had already confessed, the prosecution turned it into an obnoxious case worthy of decapitation, meaning death by hanging, the highest form of punishment. During the trial and during his period in jail, Meursault increasingly becomes a stranger, an outsider to himself. That brings us to the title of the novel, An Outsider, the Stranger. Nobody else is the stranger in the novel. The narrator himself is the outsider. As the trial proceeds, we find meaning being created out of meaninglessness, which leaves Meursault at a complete loss of hope. These are all features of existentialism. These are all features that we find in fiction of the world wars. His meaningless actions are alleged to be loaded with meaning and are held against him during the trial. Meursault's not crying on his mother's death, his writing a letter on behalf of Raymond, his carrying Raymond's revolver with him to the beach, his firing shots at the Arab, even the pause between his first and the second shots are found loaded with meaning, while Meursault knows that he had no meaning or intention behind those actions. Eventually, Meursault is condemned to death by decapitation. I'm moving to the next page. The plot depicts the alienation of Meursault not only from society but also from himself. He rejects meaning in life. He does not wish to be judged in religious meaning or otherwise. The absurdity of life is depicted from the opening line to the closing line. Mersault can make no sense of anything. The only thing that seems final is death. Throughout the plot, the sun as a symbol plays a significant role. It is depicted as oppressive, and actions in the story can be blamed on the sun. The sea, in contrast, is a symbol of happiness. All periods of joy in Mersault's life are around the sea. However, it is sadness that fills Mersault's life. The the sense of meaninglessness runs deep in the life of Mersault and through the plot. And with this, the discussion of the plot ends in your essay. With this, we move to the study of character portrayal in The Outsider. I'm taking it back to the slide. We are looking at the slide where almost all the characters are listed. We have already told you that Mersault is the main character. He is the protagonist. He is the narrator. The whole of the story is told to us from his point of view. Apart from Mersault, in the very opening lines, we are introduced to his mother, who has just passed away, and it is time for a funeral. A woman that we are introduced to in the course of the novella is Mari. She is a co-worker. She had earlier been in the same place as Mersault. They meet one another soon after his return from the mother's funeral. They have a flirtatious relationship. They enter into a romantic relationship, go to the beach, and we find that these two continue to be in a relationship until he gets arrested. Raymond, as I told you, is his friend and neighbor. He has a girlfriend, his mistress. He suspects that she's cheating on him, and there is an altercation between him and her. This girl goes and reports to her brother. The brother and his Arab friends hold grudge against Raymond, and they want to take revenge against him for having been brutal to their sister. Another person introduced in the novel as a foil, as a contrast, is Salamono. When I was reading from the plot as given in your SLM, we read about Salamono and his dog, how he used to ill-treat his dog, how his dog became his pet dog after the death of his wife, and since then, this dog was his only companion in the house that he was residing in. Though the neighbors try to intervene, though Mersault tries to speak in favor of the dogs, Salamono continues with his ill treatment of the dog. But one day, when the dog is lost, when the dog goes missing, Salamono feels that his life has no more meaning, that is lost without the dog, and we find him in a very, very helpless situation. This, as I told you, is in great contrast to Mersault's losing his mother. Salamono has lost his dog. Mersault has lost his mother. For Mersault, there is no emotional feeling. But Salamono is very distressed at the loss of his dog. One another character is Celeste. He is a friend of Mersault. He owns a restaurant where Mersault would generally go. That is where all his friends would meet. Some of the minor characters are listed there. I have indented them a little to the right. Masson, who is the friend of Raymond, owns a beach house. He lives there with his friend. On his invitation, Raymond goes to the beach house with Mersault and Mari. We are introduced to the warden at the home for the aged people. We are also introduced to the doorkeeper at the home for the aged. These are people who seem to have more feelings for Mersault's mother, who seem to be more shaken by her death. One other character introduced by name in the novella is Thomas Perret. Though we are not directly told that Thomas Perret and his mother were engaged, we are given to understand that his mother was very closely acquainted with Thomas Perret, who was also an inmate in the home for the aged. They were in love. Now, Thomas Perret also deeply mourns the death of Mersault's mother. But look, the own son does not have any feelings, while the warden, the doorkeeper, Thomas Perret, and other inmates all feel sorry on the loss of the mother. Other characters whom we see in the course of the novella, especially in part 2, are the defense lawyer, the one who fights the case in support of Meursault, the prosecutor who finds meaning in everything that Meursault does, and the judge who finally passes the judgment that he should be decapitated, that his head should be cut off. And there is the presence of the chaplain. A chaplain is the religious head. His presence is generally, this is a custom in Indian prisons also. When a prisoner is sentenced to death, the prisoner's religious head, if it is a Muslim, an imam, if it is a Hindu, a temple priest, if it is a Christian, a church priest, visit the imprisoned person, visit the accused person, and try to calm that person through religious verses from the holy books, praying with him, seeking his forgiveness, salvation, etc. For that purpose, we have the role of the chaplain in the novel. The chaplain also is surprised that Meursault appears to have no sense of religion, but it does not make Meursault an atheist. It is not that he has no faith in God. It is just that for him, religion has no meaning. So one other point that you will remember about Meursault is that he is a person, for him, religion does not hold the meaning as other people would think it to be in their lives. From a look at the characters in the novel, we will take a look at the themes that the novel discusses. I have not listed all the themes. Broadly, you can say that this is an absurd novel because that is how Albert Camus wanted his novel to be considered. There are many people who consider Albert Camus to be an existential writer, but Camus himself did not like this definition. He felt that he is not writing existentialist novels. What he is actually dealing with is absurdism. These are features that we find in the modern age, continuing into the postmodern period. The deep sense of alienation that set in the Western society as a result of World War I and World War II can also be seen to have an impact on the characters and plot in The Outsider. Everybody seems to be alienated. More so, the protagonist, Meursault. Meursault leads a life in isolation. He stays by himself. He hardly talks to his mother. We don't see him talking about his mother. The mother leading her own life in alienation, in isolation at the home for the aged. All inmates in the home for the aged are living away from their families by themselves, alienated from the rest of the world. The Arabs feel alienated in this world. Raymond feels a sense of alienation when he is in the presence of the Arabs because they belong to two different races. So at different levels in the novel, we find alienation as a major theme. Another theme is absurdity. Nothing seems to make sense in the novel. The first two lines that I read out to you, my mother died. Your mother passed. Look at the difference in the language as I pointed out earlier in the class. There is so much absurdity attached to the first two sentences. Why would a sense be so blatant? Why would a son be so blatant about his mother's death? Does he have no feeling? That is how we would all naturally react to a person's losing his mother. But for Meursault, it is a part of life. His mother was old, she was ailing, and maybe this death is a solace to her. That is why perhaps he does not feel shocked, he does not cry, he does not consider it a tragedy in his life, because he doesn't seem to make sense of it all. What upsets him more is that the telegraph fails to give the exact date of her death. It simply says mother passed away. When? For him, when is more important, not the actual act of losing his mother. There's so many things happening in the novel, one after the other, linked to this theme of absurdity. Why did Meursault have to take the revolver from Raymond? No specific reason. The gun would still have been with Raymond, And Mursal could have assured that he does not take it out to shoot the Arabs. Or Mursal could have thought, if there is a threat to Raymond's life, then he better carry the revolver on him. What makes him take the revolver? What makes Raymond give up the revolver? For a person who's afraid of his life, to give away his revolver to his friend is also something that we find absurd. Other scenes or situations in the novel that lend absurdity. Mursal going to watch a comedy movie soon after returning from his mother's funeral. His being in a relationship with Mari. In the course of the time, him going out to the beach, enjoying time with Mari and friends. Salomono being cruel to his dog makes no sense. What has the dog done to him? Why does he kick the dog? Why does he not feed the dog properly? There is absolutely no reason for Salomono to be cruel to his dog, but is still being cruel to the dog. That is the modern man. That is the postmodern man who has no sense of sympathy or empathy for anybody else. So what kind of feelings would he have for animals? Mursal going back to the beach. See, there was an altercation, nothing much happened. There were slight injuries and they all returned. What was the need for Mursal to go back and to again go back to the beach? Don't you think when one person from Raymond's group is seen again after the fight, won't the other side also feel threatened? If Raymond felt threatened by his girlfriend's brother and his friends, the brother and his friends would also feel threatened by Mursal. And remember, Mursal has already given a statement in court in favor of Raymond against the girl. So they will have a grudge against Mursal as well. His going back to the beach, his seeing the Arab, he could have walked away from there. He could have continued walking. Why does he stop there? The Arab is not trying to attack him. The Arab has not spoken a word. Still he takes out the gun, shoots. Okay, one shot would have been sufficient. Why does he shoot again and again? And it is not that he's shot all 4 shots one after the other. There is a pause between one and the 2 shots, and this is made much of in the trial. So one after the other, the complete novel is filled with absurdism. There is also a play between rationality and irrationality in the novel. There are certain things that seem to be rational. There are other things that seem to hold no meaning. They are irrational. Either it is situation, it is dialogue, it is the choice of diction, etc. But at various levels we find irrationality as a theme in the novel. Meaninglessness of life, as I told you earlier in the class, became increasingly a part of the Western modern man with the World War I and World War II. More and more people began to sense this, and more writing, whether it is plays, or whether it is novel, whether it is poetry, deal with the sense of meaninglessness of life. And we find the same thing happening here. Why should Mursal be punished so harshly? He is a single man, not well-to-do, has a very modest source of income, cannot even take care of his mother from the salary he gets, has put her in the home for the aged because he is away for long hours from home, and because he cannot actually afford her treatment. He rarely goes to visit her. On her funeral, he does go there, but he ends up smoking, he ends up having coffee, he ends up dozing off. He does not look at his mother's face. He does not have any external expressions of grief as would normally be seen in any society. But see, these are all social constructs. Everything is man-made. It is man-made that you cry on the death of somebody close to you. This is not something that we this is not any law of nature. These are all social constructs, and he is being governed by the social constructs created by society. Him carrying the gun, the sun shining into his eyes. In the funeral also, I mean, he's in so much hurry. He wants the funeral to get over as soon as possible. There is no sense of religiosity in him. He does not think of God. We don't see him praying to God. We do not find him as a devout Christian. No sense, no such religious sense at all throughout the novel. There are other characters who are religious. The mother is also said to be a religious person by the other inmates. There is a search for purpose. What are we? What is our life all about? What are we doing? So people or the different characters in the novel, especially Meursault, seem to be in search for purpose of their life. What am I? Why am I? Where am I? These are the questions that bother the characters. Love, but not the kind of love that we would imagine being depicted in other novels, is one of the themes in the novel. Love of a son for mother, or you could say lack of love of a son for mother. The love that Meursault's mother has for Thomas Perret at the home for the aged. The love of the inmates for the mother. Raymond's love for his mistress. Solomono's love for his dog, or his lack of love for his dog. Marie and Meursault's love. This is also not romantic love. This is purely physical love that we see being presented before us. Over and all, you could say that in general, what we see being reflected in the novel, covering almost all the themes of the novel, is existentialism. In your SLM, there is a discussion on existentialism at section 7.2.1.3. If you read it, you will get some idea about what existentialism is in literary theory and criticism. We find, as I told you, several critics saying that Albert Camus is an existential writer, but Camus himself did not accept this term. He was more comfortable with the use of the term absurd. But if you want to study more about existentialism, you should know about Kierkegaard, Nietzsche, Heidegger, Beckett. These are Ibsen, Kafka. You will find extensive use of existentialism in their works. But as I told you, Camus himself rejected the term existentialism because he felt that absurd is what can be found in his writings. Existentialism is a philosophy that believes in the freedom of man. That is why more importance is given to the subjective, the individual, rather than the objective. For an existentialist writer, there is no inherent meaning of life. It is for the individual to create meaning out of a sense of meaninglessness. So man exists before his existence, and man exists before his existence is given any meaning or given any purpose. The main question that an existentialist writer seeks to answer is, what is being? What am I? That is the question that keeps bothering an existentialist writer. From here, okay. I had told you in the beginning of the class that apart from what I am going to talk to you about the plot, the character, the theme, and the narrative technique, I missed. Let me take up the slide on the narrative technique. I will, to complete my sentence, I had told you apart from the discussion on plot, character, narrative technique, and theme, I will also be sharing with you some slides borrowed from other internet sources. Before I go to those slides, let me quickly look at the narrative technique. By now, while we were talking about the plot and the characters, we already know who the narrator is. Meursault is the narrator of The Outsider. He himself is the outsider in the novel. Look at the irony. The person narrating the story of the outsider is himself the outsider. This novella is presented in first-person point of view. The protagonist, that is Meursault, the central character, is himself the narrator. This central character, the protagonist, Meursault, is a man of few words. Albert Camus has made a character who is a man of few words the narrator of the novel. So what can we expect from a man who hardly speaks. A man who hardly speaks is telling us his own story in few words. So the sentences are short, very declarative. We see the whole of the world through Mirsal's eyes, because Mirsal does not seem to have any sense of relationship belonging with anybody else in the novel. The entire novel is presented in a very detached tone. We do not find any sympathy or any empathy with any other character. If this is clear to you, I will now take you to some screenshots that I've taken from some of the source. I found the way it is depicted good. I just took screenshots of parts that would help you to understand the novel better. The exposition or the opening, the beginning of the novel, that is how the action is laid down before the readers before we come to the rising action leading to the climax. The exposition, because this particular source used the title The Stranger, what you find depicted here is, I'm trying to increase the font. Okay. The title that is used here is The Stranger. The stranger and the outsider are one and the same. The Outsider is the title of Albert Camus' novel L'étranger, originally written in French. The Outsider is the title used in the British translation. The Stranger is the title used in the American translation. So in this novel, the exposition, the beginning action, the opening action, introduces the readers to Mirsal's unemotional and indifferent character. Right in the opening chapter or the first chapter of part 1, we learn about the news of Mirsal's death. Mirsal seems to be very balanced. We don't see him rejoicing. We don't see him crying. But the main thing that bothers him is not his mother's death, but when mother died, the day on which she died seems to be of greater importance to him than the death of his mother. As we've already told you, he did not experience any sorrow or grief on his mother's death. Instead, we find him remaining cold, indifferent, and detached. This is not my original slide. This is a screenshot from another source. Then we look at the rising action. As the action of the novel rises, what do we see? The rising action begins with Mirsal and his lover, Mari, spending the day together at the beach. It is in that moment that Mari questions if Mirsal loves her, but his answer was no, as it did not mean anything. This is one part that I forgot to tell you. Mari seems to be falling in love with Mirsal, but Mirsal has really no emotions even for Mari. He spends time with her, he is in a physical relationship with her, but he does not seem to have any emotional connect with her. So this reveals that Mirsal lacks any sense of any deep romantic bond with Mari. The rising action in the novel continues during the course of the week when Mirsal's neighbor, Raymond, is caught by the police for beating his girlfriend. And we are also told how, on Raymond's request, Mirsal testifies in favor of Raymond and his release. But because of this action, the girl, the brother, and his friends hold a grudge against Raymond and Mirsal. This rising action in the novel comes towards an end as we see Mirsal, Mari, and Raymond go to Masson's beach house. In the there, I told you there was an encounter, a brief encounter between Raymond, Mirsal, Mari on one side, the girlfriend's brother and his friends on the other side, causing few or light injuries to Raymond. Now this takes us to the climax. Exposition, rising action leading to the climax. This is also a screenshot from a borrowed source. The climax of the novel occurs when Mirsal murders the mistress's brother by shooting him using Raymond's gun. Before the shooting actually took place, Mirsal's focus was on the son, that was shining down heavily upon his eyes. He has absolutely no reason. He has absolutely no reason why he took out the revolver and shot at the person. From here, one last look at the last slide. These are the words from the novel. The moment when he shoots, and that moment leads to his downfall, the falling action leading to his arrest, the trial, and his condemnation to death. My here standing for Mersault. I told you Mersault is the narrator in the novel. My whole being tensed, and I squeezed my hand around the revolver. The trigger gave. There was absolutely no reason for him to hold the revolver, to press the trigger, but he himself didn't understand what or why he was doing. It just so happened that he had the revolver with him, that he just happened to go back to the beach, that he just happened to encounter the Arab once again, and that he happened to pull the trigger, and within no time he was caught, put on trial, and condemned to death.